bill to the House.
The question is that the motion be agreed to. Sir William Seo.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to take a call in the third and final reading of the Government's Environment Canterbury Temporary Commissioners and Improved Water Management Amendment Bill. During last night's debate of this bill, Labor put forward that we thought the new Minister of Local Government, the Honourable Chris Tremaine, has been landed a shocker of a bill. The bill denies basic democratic rights to the people of Canterbury. The bill will break a promise made by this government that Canterburyans will hold free and democratic elections in 2013 after this government replaced ECAN's elected representatives with 7 government-appointed commissioners in 2010. The people of Canterbury did not ask this government to interfere and remove their elected representatives in 2010. The people of Canterbury did not seek after a promise from this government that Environment Canterbury could hold its election this year. The government made that promise freely and without coercion. The government even legislated for that promise that after removing elected representatives in 2010, they said in the original act that elections would be held in 2013. Alas, that is not to be so. In passing this bill, the government breaks a solemn and legal obligation that they made voluntarily to the people of Canterbury. This bill extends for a further 3 years the loss of local government democracy in Canterbury, thus extending the term of non-elected commissioners to 6.5 years, and their services to be paid for by the people, the Canterbury ratepayers. The people of Canterbury have responded overwhelmingly opposing this bill. They have said in submissions made to the government that this bill denies their right for local democracy. It is a breach of the rule of law, they said. It is a bloody outrage and affront on democracy,
Order.
they said. I'm merely quoting, sir.
Let me just... it is not acceptable to just quote in a verbatim manner in the way the member has. I understand what he's trying to do, but I'll just continue.
I think that reflects, the quote I've put forward, reflects truly the feeling of people on the ground in Canterbury. Another quote, disgraceful anti-democratic proposal that should not be allowed to proceed. Another quote by the Human Rights Commissioner submitted that this bill breaches New Zealand's international obligations and its commitment in the International Covenant of Civil and Political Rights to protect, promote and fulfil the rights of people in New Zealand. The New Zealand Law Society opposes this bill. They rightly submit that this government does not have sufficient justification for suspending local democracy. The Beckenham Neighbourhood Association opposes this bill. The Environmental and Conservative Organisation of New Zealand opposes this bill. Through submission, through thousands of people who went out on the streets, the people of Canterbury have overwhelmingly sought to send the strongest message possible to this government to stop this madness. After a litany of broken promises on jobs, on housing, on health, on education, the people of Canterbury have no confidence that this government will allow them to hold elections in 2016. How can the people of Canterbury trust another promise after broken promise after promise has been broken? So, if the people of Canterbury have any doubt whatsoever that this government has no intention whatsoever to keep their promises, have a look and consider the announcement made today by this government of further changes to the RMA, the Resource Management Act. The people of Canterbury can look at those reforms and find out for themselves that there is no way that this government intends to keep their promise for 2016. They've broken the promise in 2013. They'll break it again. They'll break it again. Because in the recent announcement of the reforms, we now find that this pattern will now extend outside of Canterbury and will extend to all local government if the government gets away with the changes in the recent RMA. So we can't blame the people of Canterbury for feeling the way that they feel now, because it is an outrage. Particularly when you've had the Minister of Local Government, the Minister Nick Smith, who clearly said in March 2010, whatever the circumstances, the next ECAN elections would be in 2013. Whatever the circumstances, he said, whatever the circumstances, he said, the next regional council elections in Canterbury will take place no later than those scheduled for late 2013. So in this House, I've learnt that ministers' words are law. We call them honourable members, sir, because it is our expectation that they keep their word. So this bodes badly for all politicians. The way that this government has just made promises, breaking them by law, that does not bode well for any of members of this House. Not only did Nick Smith say those words, but cabinet papers presented by David Carter, the Minister of Local Government, presented by Amy Adams, also reinforced that elections would be made in 2013. And so the passing of this bill, sir, reinforces what I'm saying. There's been broken promise after promise. It's been broken because, and people might ask, well, what is the purpose? Well, sir, I think the people of Canterbury have some very real concerns, some very real fears, because if they're not going to be given the opportunity to elect their own representatives, yet be forced to continually pay for the efforts of the government-appointed commissioners, what sort of message does that send about our democracy? If I look around this room, sir, I see symbols of wreaths and names of various countries that many people fought in wars and died for. They did this, sir, freely, and gave their life, in many cases, to sacrifice because of their belief that democracy was important, that democracy be the foundation of our country. And I'd say, sir, this is a spit in people's faces. This shows that their sacrifice wasn't worth it. Because, look at, just because this government is in power does not give them the right to ram things down people's throat without taking the people with them. And I have to say, sir, that consistently, since this government came to power, I have no doubt that people in Canterbury listening to this debate, observing how this government has behaved, would be sorely disappointed, because I suspect many of them thought that this government would be a saviour, particularly, and that by electing some of their individuals representing them from that part of the country, that somehow that their interests would be protected. And sadly, they will now find out by the passing of this bill and through further bills that are to come, that local democracy means nothing in terms of this government. And if they can do this to Canterbury, what then is going to happen to other local authorities? And I would say, sir, that come election 2014, I think it is incumbent upon every New Zealander, if they do not like the way that this government is treating and trampling on the rights of individuals, the rights of our citizens, then they need to vote this group out. Vote them out. That's the only way that you can bring about good change. As David Shearer said last year, if Labour was in government, we would hold these elections for Canterbury right now. We would hold those elections right now, because Labour, sir, we uphold the principles of democracy.
That's right.
We know the value of democracy. We know the value of democracy, sir. This group here doesn't.
You practice it often. Well done.
Nikki Wagner.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I rise to speak to this Environment Canterbury Temporary Commissioners and Improved Water Management Amendment.